So tell us, Sandra, all the things that you still have in the works.
Oh yeah, so Mendez, like I said, when I learned about Mendez, I knew this was going to be the long game. Institutional change is going to take 20, 25 years. And so when I realized, when I first learned about Mendez, I thought if I want it taught in our schools, oh my gosh, I've got to get started now because I might not live to see that happen. So we're in year 15 of the 20-25 year plan. And so we've been fortunate to have honors at the White House, the U.S. postage stamp, some books have come out on Mendez, and now California has voted Mendez into the new ethnic studies guidelines.
And for any viewer of this who isn't aware, we're talking about Mendez versus Westminster, a historic 1947 California school district desegregation case.
Yes.
And you did a Emmy-winning documentary on it, and as a result of that, a U.S. postage stamp, as you said, and all these other things. So continue.
So thank you. So, so California has voted Mendez into the new ethnic studies guidelines, which is great. However, the thing is that teachers can't teach Mendez if they don't know it, and because it's not a standard, even if they do know it, they aren't required to teach it. So there are several things that are happening in our communities now that are very exciting. So one thing is that the city of Westminster has voted to create an historic trail and bike trail and walking trail with Mendez that will have tell the story of Mendez through this area that actually goes right past where the white school was in Westminster. Then that's great. So it's going to be completed maybe in 2 or 3 years, I think. That's the plan. So the other things are that I have been curating a tour ever since I did the documentary. Old Town Orange is like a time capsule from the segregation era. And they have the last standing Mexican school building in Orange County. Is owned by Chapman University. In the downtown area, there is an old movie theater. It's now the Sunlight Christian Center. That was a formerly segregated theater where Mexicans had to sit in the balcony and Anglo sat below. You go to Hart Park, and that's where the public pool was, where it was segregated. And they found the article from 1936 when the segregation began there. On top of all that, it turns out that Chapman Avenue in Old Town Orange is not the same as Chapman University. They're different Chapmans. And Chapman and Glassell were the founders of the city of Orange, and they moved to Orange County from the Confederate South. They were members of the Confederacy, and they founded the city of Orange. So there's this whole piece of history that connects California to the greater American civil rights struggle 4 miles from Disneyland. Wow. So I've curated a tour, and I'm calling it right now the Mendez Museum Without Walls. We're a nonprofit project through 10C, and I want to create a civil rights education destination that will bring students from across the country and teachers from across the country. I'm going to be working with the Museum of Tolerance to create some special teachers trainings that we hope to bring people from all over, and also students. So that's part of what we want to do. And the other thing is that, teaching teachers a few at a time, it's going to take forever to get this across the country. So whether or not teachers teach it, I want to create a new tradition called Random Active Mendez. And so what Random Active Mendez is, it's going to start at the beginning of every school year around Hispanic Heritage Month. And people who celebrate Mendez, they get a bracelet, a Random Active Mendez bracelet. And it's a specially designed peace sign, a Latino-inspired peace sign. And it's to celebrate peace. And people who celebrate Mendez get 2 bracelets. They get one for themselves and one for them to give to somebody in the community who they catch doing a Random Active Mendez.
And I already received
and
mine.
You received one.
And I gave one to Scott Hayes, my co-producer.
Yay!
So I'm
okay,
taking care
good.
of it. We're taking care of it.
But Al doesn't have one, so Al, you're gonna get one. Okay, you get one.
Thank you.
And so, and on the inside of the card, it says hashtag Random Active Mendez. So I'm hoping that people who learn about Mendez and who they share it with, it can be for anything. Because the idea is that there are people whose names you may never see in history books that contribute to the freedoms we have every day. And in fact, the desegregation that happened at the movie theater in Old Town Orange started because a soldier who came back from World War II refused to go up to the balcony. And the usher allowed him to stay there. Without a court case, they had actions that impacted all of us. And so every day when you go to Target and you come home and you're putting your groceries away, the idea is to acknowledge that everybody, from the person in the parking lot to the people that check you out, made that happen, because court cases start over something as simple as not being served cake, not being able to sit where you want on the bus, and that each of us are leading from exactly where we are and make a difference.
I also wanted to add,
as I said before, I just wish you had a little more passion about what you're doing.
Her comment on teachers. We've got over 25,000 teachers here in Orange County, and so our interest in the Westminster project that the City Council is leading with Sergio Contreras and other council members is to create have some type of presence there, in terms of what the Orange County Department of Education can do to create modules for professional development, let's say, that take place there on this particular case, how it fits into the social science and history standards of California as well as that of the nation. And we will do what we can to facilitate the learning, to keep it going, because despite all that's been done, I still find a tremendous gap in the knowledge base of people really understanding this case and the importance of it.
And it's kind of personal for you, right, Al? Talk about
Yes.
your own background, your own story.
Yes, it is. You know, Orange County Department of Education has had 11 superintendents since 1889, and I'm the 11th one, and I'm the first Hispanic. I don't look at my role there as being the first Hispanic. In fact, it was imperceptible to me. I didn't really know till somebody says, I think you were the first guy to come in that's Hispanic, you know, with a Spanish surname. So I accept that, but I had a life that was probably very similar to the Mendez family. My father was an immigrant, and he married my mother here, Latina, and I'm Mexican-American. I went to a school where it was not segregated as the Mendez did, because they had already changed it for me, all of us. But the local pool still was. You know, you could only swim on certain days, which is interesting.
Wow. What year is this?
Probably in the 60s. You know, late 60s.
Late 60s.
Yeah,
California.
yeah. And you know, it was, I don't know why, man. You know, I think it was a reason that well, it was. They said they had to, you know, I don't know, chlorinate the pool again or something. But that was the case, and maybe they did it because we lived in a housing project, Montevilla housing project. There's so many of us there, and that could be another reason.
And you said your father was kicked out,
My
right?
father was basically
not allowed back in. Explain that.
Yeah, my father left the country, and he was not allowed back in. And even though, and back then you could go across back and forth.
And he was a laborer, right?
He was a laborer, that's what he did, but he extolled the importance of education, the power of education, and he got it right. He learned very quickly that unless his children had an education and could get into the university, that they would, you know, shortcut their own opportunities in this nation.
Wow. And so both your parents are deceased now, but
Yes,
they
they
lived
are.
long enough to know that you had
My
become
mother-
a successful educator.
My mother died last year, but both of them were alive when I was superintendent of the Santa Ana Unified School District.
Wow, so it must have been some satisfaction for you.
Yeah, you know, even though they didn't know what I did, they said they just knew I worked with kids, but nonetheless, they felt a sense of satisfaction that I had graduated. I was the first one in my family to graduate from a four-year university.
Wow, pretty inspiring.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, listen, to both of you, thanks so much for taking the time. Folks that are watching this, if they're interested, they can see the whole show that we did on Mendez versus Westminster. And thanks again. Thanks.